morning, everyone. My name is James Peters, and I'm a trainer at the Singapore Turf Club out in Singapore. Thank you all for joining me this morning. Great initiative from Racing Welfare, and I'm grateful for them inviting me on to talk to you today. So I've never done anything like this before, so I'd appreciate as many questions as possible to help me get through and give me something to talk about. I've watched a few of the conversations the last few days, and I guess I'll just follow the formats from the other guests and start by talking about myself a little bit and how I got started in racing and how I ended up in Singapore, and then hopefully answer some of the questions from you guys. So I suppose I'll start from the beginning. I was born in London, complete non-racing family, non-racing background, but always had a love for racing. I always remember like Saturday afternoon grandstand and Channel 4 racing, just watching the racing and just always enjoying it. Loved the jump racing the most, and you know, from a young age, just always remember wanting to be a jockey. So had a few pony lessons as a child, but didn't have much, and I didn't really know anyone to get any work experience in a stable. So it was really when I was 13 or 14 that I found out that there was something called the racing school up in Newmarket, and you know, I did okay at school, but I was never going to be academic, and I thought as soon as I left school at 16 that was what I wanted to do. So at 16 I applied and was lucky enough to get into the racing school, and looking back on it, it's amazing how much they teach you in that 9-week period. You know, I went there pretty much never handled racehorses before, for sure. I could barely ride and couldn't tack up and things like that. And basically after that 9 weeks, you come out of there pretty, you know, competent enough to get up and down the gallops and go into a working racing stable and be sort of a competent member of staff. Obviously, you're new and learning still, but you come out of there and being able to get a job in the racing industry. So I really enjoyed that period of learning, and I was listening to a few of the other talks, and I listened to Bruff Scott the other day, and he was right when he said that you always remember the first stables that you go into. You always remember those good horses that you have, and you remember the assistant trainer and the head lad, and I can still remember all their names, and I remember the stable I went into. It was Mark Pittman's at Weathercock House in Lambourne, and remember walking into there as a 16, 17-year-old, and horses like Monsignor were there, and Smarty, and Ashley Park. He had just finished fourth in a champion hurdle, and some great horses. And I still keep in touch with some of the grooms and the lads that I met when I was 16, 17-year-old. Nearly 20 years later, we're still in contact and still keep in touch with a few of them, and we talk about those first early days of being in the racing industry. You know, it was some really good memories because, you know, being a young person that loved racing, just being able to ride out every day, talk to people that had the same interest as you, riding out in the mornings and then going racing in the afternoon. It was just like a dream for me, and I felt very lucky to be able to work and earn money and do something that was my passion anyway. So so I was at Marks for I think 6 years in total, but the first few years, obviously, because I was so new, I was a lot of improvement I had to do in my riding. So It was a great experience riding out with guys like Timmy Murphy, and Rodney Farrant was there a lot, and they really helped me with my riding, and Mark also got me schooling it pretty early on as well. So over that 2 or 3 years, I really improved and really learned a lot, and ended up managing to get a jockey's. I did manage to get a jockey's license out after about 3 years. This part of the talk won't last too long because I didn't have many rides, but I did get a few winners, and did end up. This was my first trip overseas. I ended up getting an opportunity to go over to New Zealand and have a winter over there, and ride in New Zealand, which was a great experience, completely different to what I'd seen at in Lambourne. You know, we were doing a lot of work on the tracks, on the race tracks itself, and we did beach work and things like that. It was really eye opening, and I ended up managing to have a winner on Grand National Day over there, which is a pretty big carnival. And I managed to get a ride in the New Zealand Grand National, which was definitely a career highlight for me. But I think it was probably quite clear that I wasn't going to be a jockey. It wasn't going to be I wasn't going to be champion jockey by any means. So I had to sort of think of something else to do. I wasn't happy just being a stable lad. I wanted to progress and do more. I wasn't just going to stay still. And I'd done a little bit of work for the late John Hills during the summers. I would go in and ride a little bit of work for him. And one day I was chatting away with him, and he had a pupil assistant position come available, and I decided to take that up and became John's pupil assistant. That was the first time, I spent the first 5 or 6 years of, thinking about riding only and trying to become a jockey and trying to do things like that. And I had a complete different role with John as this pupil assistant, learning to deal with staff and making sure the yard was running smoothly and things like that. So I did that for around, I think that was probably one season or so. And before going on to actually take the full assistant role with John, Colin Gorman, who was assistant at the time, he left with Tom Dascombe. Tom Dascombe, who was in Lambourne originally, moved up north, and Colin went with him as assistant, and they've been very successful. And I managed to get the assistant role with John, and I really enjoyed working with him. He was a great guy. I learned a lot. We had some nice horses. We had a horse called Ashram who went on to win a Group 3, and I think he ended up being sold to Godolphin and running a Guineas for them. But had some good experience which helped me out. Later in my career, I got to deal with. Was very interactive with the owners there. Managing the staff, making sure things would run smoothly, and things like starting to go to the sales and do some sales work, which really helped me going forward. So I was with John probably for about 3 years, 2 as assistant, but just got stuck into a bit of a rut at this period. I just couldn't see a future in what I was doing. I didn't have the finances to ever think that I'd be able to get my trainer's license and train myself in England. I didn't have a rich father that could buy me 20 horses for me to train. So that was one thing, and probably a pretty poor excuse. The cold weather was getting me down. The winters were bloody long, and we're getting colder, and I was just fed up. I just seemed to be driving up and down to Wolverhampton seemed every Friday and Saturday night, and I was just really in need of a change. I just felt like I needed to do something different. I thought about the obvious places, Australia and America, and um, they seemed okay. But I was talking to one of the riders at John's, and he was telling me that he'd been over to Singapore and really enjoyed his time out there. He loved the city and really liked the racing. He said the quality of racing was very good, and so I just did a little bit of research, had a look into the country and look into the racing, and it had quite a racing's been here for over 100 years. They've got a pretty rich racing history, obviously being British colony. The Brits take racing everywhere, so there's pretty rich history. So after doing that research, I sent out a few emails to some of the leading trainers, and Michael Freedman was the first to reply and told me that he had a position available. Now the Freedman name's pretty famous racing name in Australia and in the Southern Hemisphere. The Freedman brothers trained Makybe Diva to win 3 Melbourne Cups, and they also brought over Miss Andretti to win a race at Royal Ascot. So they're a pretty famous racing family, and Michael had gone out on his own and started up in Singapore. Pretty much 3 months later, I was over in Singapore working for Michael, and I didn't really have any great plans or anything like that. It was really a bit of a working holiday. Was looking to stay here for maybe 3 to 6 months, see if I enjoyed it, see how I liked it, and see what happened. And I was just actually enjoying just doing some track work and not having so much pressure or having to work as hard, really. But that didn't really last too long. The assistant trainer who was with Michael at the time, he ended up having a fallout with Michael and ended up leaving. And Michael asked me if I'd sort of fill in until he found a suitable replacement. So that's what I did. I filled in and found the system picked up the system pretty easily, and didn't make too many mistakes, and we were having plenty of winners. So he asked me to basically stay on in that role, and I worked for him as an assistant for 6 years. We had a lot of nice horses. We won pretty much every big race there is to win in Singapore. Michael was very much a quality over quantity type of trainer. We'd always have 50 really nice horses rather than 60 or 70 more mediocre horses. So that was his style, and we always had chances in all the big races, and we're always top of the prize money list. We had some really good horses that actually ended up going out to start in New Zealand and Australia, which is really unheard of for Singapore horses. So we had Super Easy that ended up going down to New Zealand, and he's a good bread and butter stallion down there. And we had a Super 2-year-old called Super One that won all the races in Singapore as a 2-year-old, and was sold to Australia and won a group race down there. And he's now standing at Newgate Stud and just had his first season of runners that went on to race this season, and he's had a number of winners already. So it was just getting to Singapore was it was eye opening because they obviously trained a lot different. We trained on the racetrack there, and it was different to John. John was very sort of old school way of doing things, whereas Michael was probably more modern and had different ideas on things. Would train every horse individually, realised that you didn't have to do as much work with the sprinters. You really kept the sprinters fresh, and we didn't do too much with them, which was different to England. Everything sort of got worked the same, whether it was worked over 2,000 metres, whether it ran over 2 miles or 5 furlongs, they seemed to do the same work. And just coming to Singapore, I just worked those horses a little bit differently. And he wasn't afraid to put blinkers or headgear on young horses first time out and things like that, and I think that's put me in good stead. I've got a bit of best of both worlds, take some things that you learn from the older school trainers and something from the newer school guys. So that was very beneficial to me. So as I said, we had 6 years with Michael there. And a little bit out of the blue, really, at the end of 2015, he called me in the office and said that he had made the decision to go back to Australia and set up a stable there. So he gave me the option. He said I can come back to Australia with him and sort of continue my role as an assistant and set up a stable there and get going, or stick around in Singapore and see if the club would give me a full trainer's license. So it wasn't an easy decision, really. It was a little bit, a big commitment to stay here and a big financial commitment. But in the end, decided that I'd have a go and try and get my license in Singapore, which wasn't straightforward. I had to do some tests. You have to meet criteria. I had to have what they call a B trainer's license for so many years, and I had to do a written and practical exam, which passed and was granted my license and had my first runners on in April of 2016. Got off to, I was lucky in a way. I fell into a good stable with good owners. I had 40 horses ready to race, and things got off to a good start. I had a winner on my first meeting, Olympic Anthem. He was my first winner, and we ended up having 35 winners for the season from the April around to the December. We had 35 winners, which was a good strike rate, and we got 2 group winners in that time as well. I won a Group 2 with a horse called Titanium, and a Group 3 with a horse called Spanish Bay. And that first year was really quite important, because it just gives the owners that belief that you can do the job, and to have that good start was critical for that longer term support. So things have gone pretty well since. We're 4 full seasons in now. I've had 140 winners. Just the 2 group winners still. We need to get a little bit more quality in and hopefully compete at those group race level now. But yeah, that's basically where I'm up to at this stage. If we've got any questions from anyone that wants to find out a little bit more, and then just send something through. Questions from Fran Marshall. So at the moment we have 25 or 27 trainers in Singapore. Everyone trains on the training track. We've got 1 racetrack, one training track. Everything's done at the one location in Kranji, up at the north end of Singapore. As I said, racing's been held here for years. I think it started in the 1890s or something like that. The first course was in Bukit and really popular. Racing's really popular in Singapore. There's some great old pictures. I'm sure you could find them on the internet there somewhere. Of just packed grandstands, and the Turf Club then moved from Bukit up to Kranji. I think it was in 2000. Yeah, so I think they've been up there for 20 years now, and it's an amazing facility. Really, it's you know, we've got a number of tracks to use, not just the racetrack. We've got a world-class veterinary facility. We've got swimming pools. The stables are really high quality. I've got like a double-story stable, which has an air conditioned barn at the bottom, and then upstairs we've got fan barns, but they're nice and airy, and the fans are strong, and the horses can keep cool. So um, yeah, there's great facilities in Singapore. We race all year round. We start this on the first. We always have a New Year's Cup meeting, and that's on the 1st of January. And we go round all year round, really, with either one or two meetings every weekend for the whole year, up until December. We normally have a meeting the first couple of weekends in December, and then have a 3-week break over the Christmas period, just to fix up the tracks and whatever, and give everyone a little bit of a break before starting in January again. Yeah, the heat is a problem. Some of those, we have Friday night racing, which isn't too bad because it's obviously sun's gone down and a little bit cooler. But Sunday afternoon racing can get pretty hot when the sun's beaten down on the midday in a midday race meeting. The monsoon, we don't really have a monsoon period. We have wet period. It's very tropical rainforest type of weather where it'll be hot all day, and then you'll get like an hour of heavy downpour late afternoon. We don't sort of have like a period of time where we get rain for the whole time. So we might get a heavy downpour for once a day or every other day, but it doesn't really affect that much, and it's actually nice. It cools everything down and takes the sting out of the grass track that we have here. Biggest difference would well, it's completely different from riding out in a stable in the UK. The boys here would ride maybe eight to 10 horses a morning. You're pretty much on and off. You have a lot more ground staff that get the horses prepared. The riders are jumping on, working the horses up and down the gallop or cantering them around, bringing them back, and they pretty much just swap over with the other grooms, and the grooms will take those horses back to the stable, unsaddle and wash them off. You know, whereas in the UK, you're obviously on them for an hour and a bit, and walk into the track, canter them, walk them back home again. We don't have that luxury here. And obviously the weather's a huge difference. We have to really we rush through them really to get them done before the sun comes up. We start, the track's open at 6 o'clock, so we try and get on the track at 6, and we try and get the horses worked before 10 o'clock, really, before the sun really starts to come up and get too hot for the horses to work. I find that we train them. I definitely train the horses a little bit softer than some. We don't have any staying races here, really. Like a miler, 1,600 metre to 2,000 metre horse would be considered a stayer over here. A lot of the racing is catered for 5, 6 and 7 furlong horses. So I find, sort of going back to what I was saying about Michael Freedman, just keeping the horses fresh, not doing too much with them during the week, just especially once they're up and fit. Just keep them ticking over with some light cantering and one short, sharp bit of work once a week to keep them fit. Yep. We get most of our horses from New Zealand and Australia. That's probably our biggest market. I've just this year actually, I bought 4 yearlings and a raced horse from Argentina. I think the Australian market is so strong at the moment. that we in Singapore we're just getting priced out of things, and the horses that we can afford are just really the lower end quality horses at the moment. So through a bloodstock agent, we had a look at Argentina. A couple of the trainers had bought from Argentina and had pretty good success. And just the value for money, I thought we could buy better quality of horse from there. So my bloodstock agent went over and had a look at a few, and we picked out 4 yearlings and a racehorse, and they arrived earlier this year. And unfortunately, with the lockdown, we haven't really been able to get them going much yet. But they're all working nicely, and I think we've got very good value for money from there. They're good quality horses, and hopefully they'll race well, and can be another market for us. Because as I said, the Aussie market is just a little bit too strong for us at the moment. Yeah, the worst thing is when you get wet and then have to go into the aircon. You get freezing cold, and that's probably the coldest you get is if you do get caught riding out in the rain or something. You go into the office and the office is on 16 degrees aircon. You freeze to death. Yeah, I still follow the British racing. It is still the best racing in the world. Even if the Aussie guys would probably disagree, but the best quality horses. I really enjoy watching the big meetings. I'll be watching Goodwood later today. Enjoyed watching Ascot, and yeah, if I can watch it, I will on a Saturday or Saturday evening here, Saturday afternoon in the UK. Do you ever think you'll train? I don't think so. I just don't see. It's not financially viable to train in the UK. It's far too expensive to get set up. The cost of staff and things like that, and just and unfortunately, everyone knows that the prize money is just pitiful in the UK at the moment, and I don't know how people can afford to keep horses. To be honest with you, we're lucky in Singapore that we don't have many races, but the money that the races that we do have are well funded, and we get some good prize money, and owners can actually make it financially viable to buy a horse and cover their costs. And if I can't see that happening in the UK, so I don't think I'd come back to train in the UK. I'd need to either win the lottery or get supported by a massive owner that was almost like a private trainer or something like that, where you didn't have to stump up the money. So that's I don't think I'd train in the UK again. Um, um, most the when I first came to Singapore, the horses were individually owned. Singaporeans do like to own them themselves, and there's a little bit of a stigma about syndicates in Asia. It's almost seen as a betting syndicate. They can't get their head around the word syndicate because it's synonymous with punting and the betting syndicates that they have over here. So that word was a bit of a stigma about it, but I think it's the future everywhere, having syndicates, and that's what I was talking about, those Argentina horses. We bought them without owners, a bit of a risk, but we've managed to syndicate them out and get people to buy 10% shares, and get some of the expat guys that can't afford a full horse to just take 10% and make it financially viable for them to own a share in a horse and get some enjoyment out of it. I think everyone enjoys going to the races, and if you can own 10%, it doesn't really matter if you own 10% or 100%, especially if you're in it with a group of mates. That's what we've tried to promote here, is to try and get a group of friends together that enjoy the racing, can get together on a non-racing day and have a few beers and a drink, come to the stable on a Saturday afternoon or whenever, and come and see the horse, and and make it more than just owning the horse. So when I first, as I said, when I first came, the sole owners weren't really interested in the horses as much as it was about the punting and trying to win some money and stuff like that. But we're trying to get it that people get involved because they love the horses, love the we're trying to put on, entertain them, give them something to do on an afternoon where they can bring their kids to the stable and be a part of our team. So I think syndicates are definitely the way forward. And I love living in Singapore. It's a great lifestyle. Eat out a lot. Love the food here. There's so you can get the best, most expensive Michelin-starred restaurants or the local hawker markets are just as good, and you can eat really well here and just sit out. After work, I enjoy just sitting out, having a beer and having some good food out there. And I have not taken to durian. It's bloody horrible. I don't like it at all. So, not sure. Is there any more questions from anyone? Looks like questions have finished. So we're about half an hour in, I suppose. So hope you enjoyed it, everyone. Thank you for listening to me today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully speak to you all soon. Thanks.